and welcome to Dev Show. My name is Sherry List, and I'm your host today, together with my good colleague Rasmus Jack. And today we have a very special episode.
Yeah. Why do we look so weird, Sherry? Or festive, and we have balloons in the background. What is special about this episode?
So this is the 10th episode of Dev Show. Can you believe it?
Oh, it's amazing, right? Time flies. Already 10 episodes. That's 10 weeks. And 10 great episodes. It's amazing. So that's why we're looking a bit weird. And if you are tuning into the first episode, if this is the first time you're watching the Dev Show, it might seem a bit weird that we're looking like this, but we're having fun, and hopefully you have as well. So what are we doing? What are we doing differently this time to mark the date?
Well, we are doing actually two things. One is that this is a joint kind of that forces between NG Copenhagen and Dev Show. So we have hi to both of you. If you're watching us on from NG Copenhagen, welcome to to Dev Show. And if you're watching us from Dev Show, welcome to NG Copenhagen. So we are here all together. And actually, let us know that if you're watching us via NG Copenhagen or Dev Show in the chat, you can also use the chat to kind of to interact with us. And when we have the speaker, you can ask your question from there as well. And yes, and the other thing that we are doing is that all of the attendees normally get one of the Azure Heroes badges. That we are going to share it with a link later on. But in addition to that, you can also get more swags from us.
Wow.
Yes.
How do I get swags? Is it like glasses and hats or?
It's going to be some swags, so I'm not going to know exactly what is in it, but it actually might be some glasses in it. Just saying. Nice. Yes. So in order to get that, you can use our hashtag DevShow on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and tell us what do you think about DevShow, or if you want to explain it to a friend, how do you explain it? Let us know. We are curious to hear that. And the other thing is that we have a feedback form. And you, after all, this is your show, and we want to all improve it, and we want it to be better. So fill out that feedback form, and by the end of this week, we are going to monitor the hashtag and also the result of the feedback form, and we are going to choose 2 from each of them, and we will contact you, and you will get your swag. So.
Cool.
Rasmus, what do we have on the agenda for today?
Yeah, so let me see if I can think with these glasses on. But yeah, the topic of today is adapt your PWA to the new world of dual screens. So really interesting to look into what is possible with the dual screens. And part of the session today, we're going to learn about what are dual screens and foldable devices, and what are the upcoming standards to work with, like CSS, spanning media query, Windows segments, NMI API, screen fold API, and virtual keyboard API. So a lot of good stuff for developers here who is looking to work in that area. Also polyfills, we're going to see demos and dev tool supports, and then also learn about how to get involved, which is really important for people watching in here. So today's speaker, Sherry, you promised to introduce him. So why don't you go ahead and do that?
Yes. So today's speaker is going to be Kenneth with the parrot. That's a good one.
That's not a parrot.
What it is? So maybe
I don't know. It's a bird. It's called something else. Toucan or something, I think.
Yeah, toucan. That's right.
It's from Iceland. Okay, that's good. Okay, yeah, that's true. It doesn't look like a pear, but anyway.
It's only joining me because you're funny, so I thought it would be funny as well. So there we go.
Yeah. That's cool. So Kenneth Christiansen, he is working as a senior software architect at Intel Corp at the web platform team, and he is working with a web browser since around 2006, which is pretty impressive and awesome. And many of you might already know Kenneth from all of his community involvement. He is a Microsoft MVP and also a Google Developer Expert on the web platform. And one of the things is that he is elected as the member of the W3C Technical Architect Group. It was a bit long. I had to read it. But it's a tag. Many of you know it as a tag. And apart from all of the kind of cool stuff that he's doing on the web, he is claiming that he's very good in cooking. And I can't actually 100% prove it because he never invited me to eat food that he cooked. But I take
only raw food.
but he made a very good coffee, and also I remember caipirinha that he made was also pretty good. So Kenneth, you have a chance to invite us and cook some food, and next time Osmus and I, we can also prove that we're good in cooking. But
we look forward to that, Kenneth.
Yeah.
But he also loves plants and flowers. I can approve that part. He has a very nice garden, and you can see in his background also he has really nice collection of flowers. And I recall a long conversation with him. Long conversation with him about orchids. So I totally proved that part. And he loves sci-fi and beer, specifically IPA. I
also love coffee.
Yeah, coffee as well. Is there anything else, Rasmus, that I forgot?
I heard something about Kenneth that you did something special when you were interviewed by Apple. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. This is because your phone was asking people like, "Oh, I met Steve Jobs," and I actually opened the door for Steve Jobs because I don't know. Like after I used to work for a company called Nokia, and they kind of went down. So at that point, as I was working on WebKit, I got invited to apply for a job at Apple. I actually got accepted, but I didn't join because I decided to stay in Denmark where I have my family. So I didn't go to the US. But the day I was there, actually someone came and had some trouble opening the door. So I went there and I probably like pushed the button or something and then hold it. And it was like Steve Jobs. And I was like, okay. The other thing that was interesting is that I was not the only one for my team interviewing that day. There's actually two other people. And one of the other guys, they're both, he's at Apple today. He was standing in the line for for lunch. And Steve Jobs was standing like right behind him, and he didn't notice. And I thought it was very interesting because, like, of course, he's like a major personality and has done a lot in our field. So he's unfortunately gone. But just that I had actually the chance to just like see him in real life and be that close without even saying hi to him was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Interesting story, Kenneth. So thanks for that, and thanks for joining the Dev Show. I think we should jump into the topic that you're going to talk about today. I look very much forward to see your presentation. So let's just give the stage to Kenneth and let's jump in the background. Look forward to that.
Yes. So see you.
Okay. Do you all see my slide right now? I assume you do. Okay, you do. So, hi, let's talk about this presentation called Foldables, Adapt Your Experience to a New Class of Devices, or like your PWA to this new class of devices. Unfortunately, I have become a bit ill. This is not Corona, so don't worry. So if I'm coughing a little bit, doing this show, you know why. First of all, as Sherry said, my name is Kenneth Christiansen. I work at this company called Intel. So Intel is a semiconductor. You most likely know us from the CPU sitting inside most of your computers. But at Intel, I'm not like directly involved in the silicon itself, though I'm somewhat getting more and more involved. But I work on the software side, because software is really what powers the world today. So here I've been working on, I got hired to work on browsers and browser engines such as WebKit, and after that, the Chromium engine is called Blink, and Chromium itself. So this means that I work on the browsers Chromium or Chrome and Microsoft Edge. So Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge. But I'm also involved in standardization, mostly in the W3C, which stands for the World Wide Web Consortium. It's a consortium started by Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who was the inventor of the web. I've also been involved more and more in JavaScript standards, and as Sarah said, I'm an elected member of this very long name called the World Wide Web Consortium Technical Architecture Group. So actually, it's kind of like funny, like the tag is pretty important inside the whole web industry, but very few people have ever heard about the tag. Or I guess like W3C, people more or less know about because they work on the standards. But as we have all these different working groups and community groups and different standards being developed in parallel, you can imagine that things are not always totally aligned. Like people don't know that someone else working on something very similar. They don't know maybe the newest way that you do something in JavaScript. So the tag is really there to make sure that everything on the web kind of makes sense. So we kind of like charted with the stewardship of the web architecture. So making sure that all new specs are kind of aligned. If there's some new like big issues, we like raise those. And this means that most of our work is about doing like spec review, but also gathering all of our feedback into this document, which we call Web Platform Design Principles. So if you search on that online, you can find a lot of information about like how we design APIs for the web. So if you have any interest, I really encourage you to do that. So the first question I often hear is, why does Intel, a semiconductor, care about the web at all? Like, don't you do like CPUs and stuff? And I think the answer here is that, well, hardware without software today is basically worth nothing. All the specialization we do, all the optimization needs software enablement. They need software to take advantage of them. Things become much more complicated today. So you really want to expose all of that to developers, otherwise it's just like dead hardware. And also very interesting is that our friends at Microsoft, the sponsor of this event today, they actually said that 60% of the time spent on a PC, usually measured from Microsoft and Windows, is within a web browser. So that would probably be like Edge or Chrome or Firefox. What is more interesting is that actually a lot of those non-web browser apps running there are still based on browser technology. It could be like Visual Studio Code, Slack, Spotify, etc., that are just running in something like Electron or maybe CEF, other things that wrap a browser inside the runtime. So they're still based on a lot of web technology and could very well in the future move to just run inside the web browser as well, maybe as a progressive web app. So what, like Sherry said, like I have been working on the web since 2006, and I've done this because I believe the web is pretty awesome. It has really, really great reach, and it's also there for the long tail. It's not like if you do a website, it needs to be seen by millions of people. Like you can do a small little website about a particular interest you have, whether that being cooking or like orchids or toys and whatnot, and it will still be there on the web, and it can be found. Also, getting to it is usually like very low friction. Usually it's just like entering a URL, and there you go. But the web is also more than that. It's indexable, so you can have this search engine that will try to find your site and actually show it up. So people, when they go and search for, say, how to make great coffee, they might find your website. Or like, about this particular orchid, how do you take care of it? You'll find the website. Your site will be surfaced in a browser engine. Interesting enough, the web is also designed in a way that it's safe by default. This means that you can surf around the web and generally feel really safe. Of course, if you install like download an app, install it, that's considering exiting the web, and then you're into the native land. But generally, like surfing around the web won't put you into harm. It's also very interesting is that it has a lot of other features, like it has this thing called linkability or deep linkability. Like I can see a specific tweet. Let's say that Sherry shared a great tweet today, and I want to send that to my friend Rasmus. So I would just copy the URL and send it maybe using a chat to Rasmus, and Rasmus, who have maybe never installed the Twitter app or never used Twitter, we'll be able to click on it and immediately see that experience. He'll see that exact tweet inside the Twitter experience on the web. It won't ask him to first install Twitter, then after installing Twitter, after downloading 100 megabytes, installing it, then maybe like the tweet is gone. Like this will bring you directly to that experience. And then if Rasmus goes on to never ever use Twitter again, well, then the web is ephemeral. This means that those caches, all the resources that it took up on your device, will get removed over time. Of course, if you have plenty of space, like, well, then the cache will probably stay around for a little. But if you're low on space, like what you have used the least or the longest time ago, will kind of like get removed automatically. This is unlike a lot of native app where you actually install it and then you forget about it, and like you still get update maybe once a month. It still uses your bandwidth and it still takes up your storage space. And I even see that on my phone. Like I have a lot of apps where I look, oh, I didn't remove that, because I don't go and look through all my apps all the time. And sometimes for a conference, maybe I'm forced to install a particular app, or maybe like Telegram or something like that. It's also composable, which is very interesting. It means that I could, for instance, write a news article, and I want to write a news article about this talk today. So I'm taking Sherry's tweet and I'm putting that directly inside that news article, so people can see the tweet inside the article itself and maybe even interact with it. This is called composability. Very cool. What is also very nice about the web is that it's really good for different device form factors. So as in, unlike many native apps, like an iPhone generally has the same size, so people might hard code like sizes and like, but like the web has always been designed for different screen sizes. So you have all these features such as media queries that makes it really easy to make this responsive design, so that one experience can work great across all kind of devices. So let's have a look at the dual screen and foldable screens. What we call dual screens today, or at least in this talk, is kind of like these about foldable devices. But these are foldable devices that are created by using two separate physical screens that can be folded together. So this is what we call a dual screen. From the OS point of view, they're still considered like one virtual screen. So it's like one screen with a hinge in between. But we call them dual screens because they consist of two physical screens. Foldable screens are the opposite. Kind of, it's like where you have a screen that can actually fold. So you still kind of have like these two sides of the screen. So kind of like two virtual screens, but it's actually one screen being folded. So these kind of new devices are emerging, and we're seeing more and more every year. Of course, two physical screens, the dual screens is already very proven technology. They're very stable. They can have like good screen protectors. The foldable screens are like newer technology, and it, like you see that every year it's getting better and better. So you can imagine this being like very common thing and very good quality, for instance, in 2 to 5 years from now. This is why it's very important, because sometimes things on the web takes a bit longer to get done, to be done in the right way and getting through standardization. So we don't want to be early to make sure that you can develop your experiences for these kind of devices. For this, we've been working on a lot of different APIs. One of them, I'm just listing them here and we'll look at them. It's like CSS spanning media query. It's a CSS extension done by Microsoft and Intel. There's a JavaScript version of it, which we call Windows Segments Enumeration API. There's an API I've been working on together with Samsung. That's about like how to actually get access to the angle when you're folding it, or like the posture. And then like when you have this device, you also need to deal with the keyboard. So there's also work on how to better interact with the virtual keyboard. Maybe in the end, this is going to be like maybe one standard or two standards. We don't know really yet, because we're really trying to make sure that how all of this will fit together. So there's a lot of different familiar and simple concepts to talk about here. So let's look at the spanning media feature. So the way we look at this is that we consider all of these devices, foldable and dual screens, as one viewport. So we really keep it simple and familiar, because like on the web, if you had to have like two different windows, and that is going to be really different way to develop your experience, because you have to create like two different documents, place them each in one window, then communicate one with the other. It's really different approach. So it's much simpler if you consider everything just being one viewport. It will also be the same API, whether this is a foldable screen or a dual screen. So we just consider these just to be another responsive target. So here I'm looking at some of the values for this spanning media query feature. So this is what we call a single fold vertical. This is what we call a single fold horizontal. And here you have a none, which is basically like a regular screen that has no fold. So what you might ask yourself is like, but we already have like an orientation media feature. We also have a ratio media feature. Isn't that enough? Actually, it's not, because what is interesting about these devices, if you ever used like Windows, you probably know this app called like Fancy Zones. So it kind of allows you to like take one area of your screen and say that it's like a zone. And this is especially useful if you have very wide monitors, because like if you want to maximize, for instance, Chrome, you don't want it to span like a very wide monitor, because that's not really useful. Maybe you want to span like one side of the monitor, and then maybe having Visual Studio Code on the other side of the monitor. So this is kind of the same with these devices. You can kind of consider these devices having these zones or segments, as we call them in the standard. So this means that I might maximize or my browser window to be just on one side of, or like on dual screen on one physical screen, or like on one side on a foldable display. And that means that if it's there, if in the first one, it will be in portrait mode, though the device itself is in landscape mode. This is why you really need to know both. Very simple example. I'm just trying to change the content, the background of my content to orange. You see that applies to my regular monitor, none, my small phone, and my, in this example, a dual screen device. Of course, I can use something like max width to try to target like the small phone device. So here I'm trying to turn that to green, the background. Works really well. And of course, like I can use this together with something like the single fold to also target this like dual screen device. So very simple, very nice. But what is really interesting is that you want to target the situation where you expand the browser window to cover the whole display. So both physical screens in the case of a dual screen. So if you see in the top, you just see like two different browser windows, and the first up here is just like two different browser windows, looks fine. But if you look at the bottom, you see if I expand this calendar thing, it kind of gets cut in the middle, which is not the nicest experience. Plus, maybe on this, like on the dual screen, there's a hinge in between, so that is actually covering some of my content. So what I really want to do is to know where that hinge is and what sizes these zones or segments have, so that I can lay out my content much better, as you see on the last screen. So here's another example. This is a demo with it. So you see the small demo is very nice. It's a photo viewer. Now I expand it across two screens. And you see, yeah, these images gonna get caught in the middle. If you click on one of the icons to see it in full screen, or kind of like this hero thing, like it really gets cut in the middle. It's not the experience that we're really looking for. So we really want to avoid things like this, where you see like a dialogue in the middle. We want to put it to one of the sides. So something like this should be possible. So with the example we showed before, our solution was basically to say, hi, let's always show like the big preview on one screen, and then having the selector on the other screen. And then we can even, like, if there's a bit more space available, then we can even like add some metadata, like here it says this photo depict depict a woman on a boat somewhere in Asia, etc. So really taking advantage of these two screens. So the way you do this is, or the way we did is that we introduced some CSS environmental variables. So this is a new feature in CSS. It was introduced originally by Apple because they had the iPhone with the cutout. So if you wanted to create these web experiences that will know where the cutout was and not actually like put text and icons below this camera cutout, then they had these CSS environmental variables that they could like query to know where the cutout was. So here we have like, we're trying to give like some environmental variable that will let you know where this fold is. So we have like fold left, fold top, fold width, and fold height. And with these four environmental variables, you can actually adapt your content to look good on these set of devices. But sometimes you're not dealing with CSS. Sometimes you might be using like an experience that, say that you wrote a game, you use like Unity. It's probably like exporting to something like WebGL or like a canvas tag, which is not CSS. So we also needed a way that you could query these information from JavaScript. So this is a very simple API. We currently call it window segments enumeration API. It basically allows one function call that will give you the segments. Very simple. So for regular display, you'll only get one. If you have a dual screen or foldable, you'll get two. So very, very nice. And then you can lay out things to that from JavaScript. So as I said, this works really well when you cannot use CSS. So like for the Canvas 2D WebGL, also upcoming on newer APIs like CSS Paint Worklet that allows you to write these CSS painting operations that runs in a worklet. But also I felt like these like dynamic and unpredictable layout. For instance, there's work on CSS on the Houdini APIs on adding like a layout API for CSS. So it would be nice that it would also know exactly where are this fold, so you don't lay out things behind it. Even on a foldable display, you might say, well, there is no actually hinge in between. Of course, a hinge below the screen, but like it's not really covering your content. But still, it might be very useful to know where that is, because that area might not be very responsive to, like, say, touches. For instance, if the device is very folded, it might not be so easy to actually put your finger there and click. So you might not want to show like UI buttons and the like there in that area. What we're also looking at now is that we're looking at extending these APIs. We have already these APIs implemented and even available as an Origin trial on, like, for instance, the Surface Duo device from Microsoft. But really want to extend these to work in the future if we get devices with more than one fold. Or like even maybe on desktop, if you use something like Fancy Zones and you have this very wide monitor and you really want to like split it into different zones, you maybe have 3 zones. So it would be nice that these web experiences can take advantage of it as well. So we're looking at extending that as well. Now let's look at something else, the Virtual Keyboard API. So what is interesting about Virtual Keyboard on mobile today is that it actually, like when it pops up, it normally resizes the viewport. And it does that because you might have like an input field, like you see in this photo and illustration. But if you click on it, you don't want the keyboard to pop up on top of it. So one of the easy way to make a lot of like website just like work without like forcing developers to go and adapt them and adjust them was to resize the viewport. Unfortunately, when you have something like a dual screen device with a big screen, you probably don't want to show the keyboard on both screens at the same time because it's so huge. So if in the case, as you do on the, for instance, the Surface Duo, just show it on one screen, resizing the viewport means that you're resizing it on both screens, which means that now you're seeing the background on one of the screens, which is not really what you intended. This could be, for instance, say a Gmail or Outlook. So maybe on the right side, you have like a list of all your emails, and maybe on the left side, you have a list of your emails, and on the right side, you might have like the email that you're looking at, or even like an email you're composing and responding to. So you might still want to be able to maybe see the original email on the left side while you're like writing a reply on the right side. But like if the screen side is being the viewport is being resized, that is not going to be very useful. So we really wanted something like this instead. Currently, there's work on doing this like opt-in mode. They say, hey, I know I wanted to overlay content, and I will make sure that it's not going to cover up input fields and the like. Please don't do that. Just give me like an example of where the keyboard is so they can adjust my content. I think that we should also allow this from CSS. This is not currently with the proposal, so this was an example I wrote where I tried actually using CSS environmental variables to do this, to show that this would be possible. So this is kind of like the experience we're looking at. So this was like a polyfill that I did myself. So this shows that this is definitely doable. So currently the way it works is that you opt into this mode, and then you get this new like event, overlay geometry change on the virtual keyboard that you subscribe to, and then you can get like the actually bounding rect of that keyboard. That seems to work pretty well. So the very simple API, this is not totally solved. There's still a lot of discussion going around whether this is the right way, especially with because there was this viewport API as well. So Apple thought that was really good, and we should extend that instead. But I think like now everyone understands the different challenges, and I assume that we're probably going to get a real solution to this problem very soon. Something else I worked on was actually exposing the fold angle. So as these devices can fold, there is normally a sensor that will tell you the exact angle, because that allows you to adapt your content as the angle change. So if you look at the screen, you'll see you can consider these as different postures. So you might have this laptop compose mode. You might turn it around like a tent mode. So maybe for a game, multiplayer game, where like they'll sit like playing a game, like a friend could sit on the other side, only seeing one screen, I see this screen, and you can play together. So you really want to adjust the experience to these cases. Or like doing something like a children's book, when you open up the book, something will pop up it will pop out in your face or animate and the like. We really want to enable these use cases as well. So I've been working with Diego, who used to be at Samsung. He's at Microsoft now on this API. So we're having a simple API where developers can just use the posture. So we try to standardize these across like what OEMs are using, so that we kind of get the same values, so that developers will get like the same experience everywhere. There's also examples where like here, example Diego did, like if you're in this like laptop mode, I think we probably rename it compose, and it's a single fold horizontal, well, then maybe you adjust the experience, something like this. This allows you to maybe like put it on your, your table, or and then like still like talking to someone and seeing their screen, while having the bottom part like something where you can interact with it and like add like mute and the like. And here's the example where we're just like trying to animate as the device is being opened. Here in this example, we're just trying to animate the fishes so they will rotate. Very simple. In order to play with this, because it's kind of like hard without having a physical device, I created a small polyfill where you basically can use APIs as they are today. You install this small web component, so a small widget, and with this widget you can kind of like change the settings and the angle, and you can see like how the experience adjusts. In this example, I'm just changing the color of this like circle. So what is the status of the APIs, and how is the web standardization progressing? Well, currently the CSS spanning media query is implemented for Windows 10X and Android. The same with the Windows segments enumeration API. So actually, if you get the Microsoft Surface Duo with Microsoft Edge, it has an origin try. It means you can sign up for a token, a key that you can put to your website, and then you can actually use this feature today. This means that maybe in a future version it won't work, but it allows you actually to deploy it today and use it on this device. It's not shipping because it's still experimental, because we really want to make sure that this is the exact right API. So this means getting developer feedback, going through the standards track in W3C, getting feedback from different working groups and vendors. Screen Fold API is actually implemented as an experiment on Android by Samsung, but I haven't tried it myself yet. And Virtual Keyboard is the same. It's also implemented for these different devices. For like Windows X or Windows 10. I also believe it's probably there on Surface Duo as well. But in order for people to get really playing around with these features and developing on their desktops and other computers without having these devices available, we have been writing polyfills. So there's a polyfill for the foldable media queries, the spanning thing. Very simple. There's also one for the Windows segment enumeration API. Actually, the former polyfill uses that, so they work really well together. And then we added this like small little widget. I thought it was nice that you could add this small web component to your website that would just allow you to configure and play around with the different devices and see how your experience would interact. So like add this to your website, at the foldable device configurator web component, and you can actually play around with it. And now I'm going to show you a few like cool demos that I've worked on together with my coworker Alexis. And this will also show you that small widget. So first of all, you saw the photo gallery. I hope it starts playing soon. Yeah. You see, if you look at the bottom right, you see the small widget. So you see here it's just as a normal screen. If you click on dual screen emulation, it turns into this different experience where you can play around with it. As you can see, it also allowed me to like paint a kind of fake hinge, and like it has all these kind of configurability. It knows like common devices, like existing dual screen devices that you can play around with. So you can really test it out on your regular computer. I play around with this today. Alexis also wrote this other demo called the Battleship. It's kind of like this sync your Battleship demo where he's really taking advantage of the two screens. You see it's really nice. And as before, you can play around with this small widget, add this to the website, and actually emulate. So this is really, really nice. But what is really cool is that there's also work going on adding DevTool support, especially to Edge. So that instead of using the polyfills, you could do this inside the DevTools. Of course, that normally means that you need to use Edge on Windows or like one of the supported platforms and have the DevTools open. So if you want to make sure that this also works on other browsers, that your website, you don't want to break your website working on other browsers, like you can still use the polyfill. So this is probably gonna, in the long term, is gonna replace the polyfills. But it's really nice to see this coming to DevTools as well. So are there any additional work going on? Yes. As we've been working on this, Google has actually been working on supporting external displays and screens. So they started by two specifications. They are merged today. I'll say that on a different slide. They start by working on screen enumeration, kind of like this API to enumerate your internal and external monitors. And like if a screen is plugged in or removed, you can get notified when that happens. And you can like query properties like screen size and whatnot. This is used in conjunction with Windows placement, which allows you kind of like to put different windows on different screens. Like saying during this presentation, I might want to have another screen next to me where I want to see my speaker notes. The interesting part from that, the feedback we got when we looked at this in the tag is that, well, this external screen might actually be a plugged-in Surface Duo, a dual screen. So I really need to make sure that these APIs work together. So that when I get the screen enumeration and it says you have a screen here, it will say, well, this is actually a foldable screen. It's maybe a dual screen with two, but like one visual monitor. So you still want like, you want to show the speaker notes there, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't show them exactly where the hinge is. They should be on one side and the like. Now we're getting like growing interest from Google on actually making this work together with dual screens. And actually very soon we're going to have this yearly W3C meeting called TPAC, Technical Plenary and Advisory Committee meetings, where we're going to like discuss all of these new APIs together with people from Microsoft and Google and the community to make sure that all of this work. The current Google spec has been renamed and is now called the multi-screen Windows placement. But I would imagine that all of these, like whether all of these become one spec or two specs, like it's we don't really know at this point yet. And it doesn't matter so much. It's just really important that all of these features work together in harmony. But of course, like we have to look at the future when designing these kind of APIs, because what happens if tomorrow you're gonna get like a 7-fold display? So actually what is happening is that there are actually a lot of people and OEMs looking at having more than one fold, or maybe not exactly having the fold in the middle. Of course, there is a bit of trade-off between usability and price, because the hinge is very expensive when creating one of these devices. But more so also like all the internals inside, say a laptop, where you put the battery, the connection through the screens to make sure that everything is fast and doesn't get hot and all those things, that makes this really a challenge. So personally, I don't believe we're going to see something more than like max like 2-3 folds. I've seen a few like ideas, and some of this actually makes a lot of sense. But like, so I definitely believe that we're going to see like dual fold devices, but we might not see much more than that. But still, it's like very, very important for us that we can kind of work with these devices when they come to market, and that we haven't designed an API that only works with a single fold. So if you want to join the effort, a lot of this is happening in the W3C. So we're having different working groups, like the device and sensors working groups, CSS working group. But it like in the W3C, you need to be a member and invited expert if your company hasn't joined. But like a lot of this work is actually happening on GitHub. So just find the specifications. You can go and file a GitHub issue. You can have a discussion on GitHub. And that's really how you get involved. Like try out the polyfills, play around with these features, and report your issues. With that said, this was my short presentation about dual screens and foldable devices. And if you want to talk more to me, please keep in touch on Twitter @Kenneth Rohde. And with that said, now if you have any questions, feel free to ask them.
Great presentation.
Yeah, this is the time when I start like, please say that like I didn't lose the connection in between. I've been talking all alone for the last hour.
We heard you all the time. Really awesome work that you're doing here in presentation. Really loved it.
Yes, and for you, Kenneth, we had a couple of actually mentions here. We have Maxim in the crowd, that he says that he can't wait to test all these actions in Surface Duo. And
I am all with Maxim, like I can't wait either, but like I don't have one of these devices yet. I don't know when we get them in Europe.
Yeah, but we have one more person in the crowd that he is actually waiting for his Surface Duo.
Oh, cool.
Well, and you might actually know him. Let me bring...
Wow. Well, I can tell you this, like my coworker, Alexis, who's in the US, he has one already. So I'm all jealous.
Yes, because I asked people. Yes, you found it. Yes. So.
So here, like, yeah.
Yeah, he's in the crowd as well, and
cool.
Yeah, a shout out to you.
Yeah, so shout out to Suhir because he actually worked on these slides together with me. So I don't know if you saw him on the first slides. There's a few people who have helped me with the slides and this content. So like my coworker Alexis, Diego, that I said just joined Microsoft, and Suhir, of course. So yeah, we're all in this together.
Yeah. And then some of the other people that we actually asked if there is any anybody who had a foldable screen already, and as you also can sense here from the audience that it is pretty expensive, you can maybe also say that.
Yeah, of course, like all new technology is expensive,
Yeah.
but as you know, like price comes down, right? Like I remember my first laptop was like 25 megahertz, 2 megabytes of RAM. It was a 286. It was like super expensive, and I had 100 megabyte of hard disk storage space, and that was like a beast of a machine when I got it. Then I actually like added a co-processor so that my dad could run like Autodesk on it, like AutoCAD. So like things have changed. Like this would be worth nothing today. Like think about Raspberry Pi. Like even Raspberry Pi, the first version, like it's much faster. So the world is gonna look very different in like 5 years from now. So these devices are gonna be much more affordable. So yeah. Any other questions? Or
Now, so here actually he mentioned that I don't remember it was in which of the slides was it that he mentioned that Chrome also has it, and
right.
and
Cool.
he also,
Yeah. So he says Edge on Windows 10 and Mac, the same actually with Chrome, will have this like the dev tool support. Okay, I didn't know that it was actually enabled in Chrome as well, but that is good news.
yes.
So yeah, there's like nothing holding you back. Like go install the latest version of Edge or Chrome, or try out the polyfills, and try adjusting your experiences and give us feedback. I'm certainly there's gonna be like edge cases and things we haven't thought about, and like just like bringing that to us as soon as possible is gonna help us in the long run.
Yes,
Like
totally
we really want this to be simple. We want to have like APIs that are generic enough that you can handle all these kind of different use cases, whatever is popping up in the future. But we also want APIs that are very simple. So maybe some more advanced APIs and some really simple APIs, so that you can take your existing website and with very few changes, you can make it work nicer on the dual screen. Then maybe if you really want to like change things to be like a whole different experience, then you can also do that. Maybe not like immediately, but maybe after like you redesign your experience. So yeah. Thank you, your dog. Is that your dog, Sherry?
No, you meant my dog. He doesn't look like it.
Then it has grown a bit since I saw it last time. At least.
No, I have two. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So,
but like this is a dual slide, right? So dog is on the one side, and then we have a QR code on the other
definitely.
side.
Had this been a dual screen, like you need to make sure that the dog is taking up all of the right screen, and this QR code will be all of the left screen. Yeah. There's no reason to see it's a bit of white on one of the screens. Yeah.
No, it wouldn't make sense. So good catch there. And we definitely want everybody's feedback here, both for this specific session. I'm sure Kenneth also would like to, a lot of shout outs in the chat, but also give feedback for the session, also for the dev show in general. We reached the 10th episode here. So we have done a lot of dev shows already, but we want to continuously improve it. And as Sherry also mentioned in the beginning, she has some swag she's going to send to at least 2 people that will fill out the form. So even more incentives to go in and give us some feedback. And also, if you want to speak at the dev show yourself and give a talk like Kenneth this time, please go in and also put it into the feedback form so we can get in touch with you. And you can, of course, also give your feedback on #DevShow on different social medias and in the chat here in the platform that you're watching us on. So there's a lot of ways to give feedback. Please let us hear from you.
By the way, is this recorded?
Definitely.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Yes, it is recorded. And yes, actually speaking of that, if you go to YouTube channel that we have for devs, you can watch all of the kind of recordings of the previous dev show, NG Copenhagen, and also Azure User Group Denmark. So we have everything over there. And yes. So let's go next. that yes, my Azure heroes. Yes. So for those of you that you're watching our dev show, every week we are giving you away one of these cute little badger that we have. And for those of you that you don't know about this cute little badger, it is called Azure Heroes, and it's our community program from Microsoft that we are that it's a way for us to say thank you for learning, for using our technologies. And even if you go stay farther and then sharing your knowledge with the others, we have multiple different badger that we have for you. And when you scan this QR code, you need to, and you never had an Azure Heroes badge before, you need to download an app which is called Engine from our partner, because these badges, they are based on blockchain and you need to store it in your wallet. And one tip for you is that when you want to, you need to put a password and you need to remember that password. Very hard way. That's the way that it works. That if you lose the password, you will lose all of your badges, and we can't recover for you. And also, if you change your phone, which I did it also recently, remember to make a backup. Again, you will lose your phone. So that's for you to know. And and the other thing is that you can go to our website, aka.ms/azure.heroes. We have multiple different badges there for you, and you can recommend, actually you can nominate yourself or a community friend for multiple different badges. And you can add yourself to the map that we have. We recently launched azureheroes.community website, where this is, of course, is like a voluntarily that you can connect your digital wallet to the map and to appear on the map, and then find other Azure Heroes around you. And it's really interesting distribution, even for me. I keep looking at it. You can go and find some of your friends actually there. And upcoming event.
What's coming next? So, of course, we have the dev show next week, the 13th, where Magnus Mortensen is going to talk about the big move to Azure and how the developers world is going to be different. And as a special thing for the next week's episode, I will be on vacation, so Sherry will be hosting this episode with Gern, and Gern has been a speaker on Dev Show as well. So he will be here to host you together with Sherry. So you will be in super good hands. And the next one is GitHub Roadshow, migrating from Azure DevOps to GitHub by Solidify. And then we will be back on the Dev Show the 20th with Sabiha, talking about creating interactive art and basic games with JavaScript and P5.js. And then the next dev show would be with Rohde Christiansen, which is also a big figure in the Azure community, talking about GitHub in action. So really a lot of things to look forward to, and the full program can be seen in our community site, because we actually have a full lineup almost the rest of the year, right, Sharon?
Yeah, it's lineup is totally packed for 2020. That's yeah, that's very surprising and interesting. And
awesome.
Yes, because you're awesome. So I'm just joking. But yes, and Kenneth briefly mentioned about that, getting involved in the community, and then you can contribute in multiple different projects that is there. So that's why that it is good to mention that we have Hacktoberfest going on for the whole October. And also there is also a hashtag which is called October, what was it? Open Source October. Sorry, Open Source October. So if you go to contributing.today, you can see a lot of interviews with the multiple different open source contributors and open source kind of that maintainers about their project, and then how you can get involved in the project. And also, speaking of contributing.today, they have every week right after Dev Show, if you go to the contributing.today, you can watch, you can join the show, which is giving you multiple different tips and workshop on how to get involved in the open source project. If you have a README file for your project, how you can make it like accessible and meaningful, inclusive. So there are a lot of things happening. So I really encourage you to go and check out the contributing.today. And if you want to talk about us, the best way is on Twitter. Both of us, we have our DM open, and of course you can reach to us in the other platform as well, on LinkedIn as well. But Twitter is the easiest way.
Definitely. Yeah.
So with
that, it's back on with the glasses and say thanks for the episode number 10. Thanks, get the bird in the screen as well, Kenneth. Thanks for seeing this. Thanks for being on the Dev Show, Kenneth. We really enjoyed it and look forward, not me to see you next time, but for you, Sherry and Karen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Thanks for listening. Bye.